Opposed to snowy day. We're really happy to have you all here. My name is Greg Reedman. I'm president of the Charles River Regional Chamber. I'll be moderating this debate today with the four candidates who are seeking for the two seats on the select board in the March 5th election. We are going to, the focus of our questions today will be on issues of importance to businesses and nonprofits, as well as issues that we believe are relevant to the economy of Wellesley. But there may also be a general question or two, and we'll invite anybody who wants to suggest a question to go into chat and put one in there. But I got a lot of questions already, so we may or may not get to yours. So I'll just tell you that right now. But we're grateful to have you here. We are recording this event so it can be shared widely. We do have some people watching today, and we're delighted to have those of you who are watching here. So instead of basically just I've explained already the candidates, but everyone knows we don't use a timer for our conversations with the candidates, except at the end we'll give everyone about 90 seconds to make a closing statement. But we will encourage the candidates to chat with each other, not to filibuster. I reserve the right to interrupt somebody if I think we need to focus or we're just running out of time, which inevitably happens as the hour moves on. So. To begin with, I have asked all the candidates to think about this question in advance instead of a standard opening comment. And the question is, I'd like to ask each of you to tell me about one day in your life that inspired your interest in public service. And I'm going to, at least for the beginning here, go in alphabetical order, and we'll start with Colette Aufranc with the opening question. Welcome, Colette. Great to have you back.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for hosting this. I guess I will talk about the day that set me on this particular chapter of my service life. I think I'd say that. I remember actually quite vividly going to Sprague School to a potential parents' night and watching the PTO president present to the parents. And I thought, God, that's just so cool. What the PTO does here, it was very organized. It was a really great presentation. Kate Clank was the president at the time, and I did not register my daughter that year, but I came back in the following year, registered my daughter, and tentatively volunteered to be the treasurer for the PTO. And since that time, I have been unable to help myself, and I've volunteered as a treasurer for every organization I've bumped into, every PTO, Central Council of PTOs, the Youth Centre, Sustainable Wellesley. I was the chair of the audit committee for the town of Wellesley before I ran for the select board, and since being on the select board again, I've just been the treasurer or the chair of the audit committee for every organization I've volunteered with. So now I'm the chair of the audit committee for the MBTA advisory board, the MWRT advisory board. I'm liaison to our audit committee, and so I spend my life using my skills, which is I'm an accountant. I'm the only accountant on the board, and that's how I got into this. And so every time I see Kate Clank at the dump, I'll say to her, do you know what happened that day that I saw you at the PTO meeting? And so here we are. That's my
very good. Thank you.
chapter.
Marjorie Friedman, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the Chamber for hosting this event. I've had 3 different careers over the course of 30 years. I was a trial lawyer, a small business owner in Wellesley, and a social justice and ethics educator. And I remember saying to then town meeting moderator, Peg Metzger, when I was transitioning from full-time to part-time work, how can I get involved in town government? And I grew up in a town that had a mayor, so I wasn't quite as familiar with the town meeting, representative town meeting form of government. I was appointed to advisory committee, and I was off and running. I ran for town meeting, completed advisory, and ran for the select board, and have just learned so much and appreciate the breadth and the depth of the work that the volunteers and the staff do together to make this town what it is.
Great, thank you. Next up is Anne-Mara Lanza. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I was inspired into public service as a child. And I'm not sure the year, but I can tell you the day. And this was the day of annual town meeting in Lincoln, Massachusetts, where I grew up. That town meeting is held in a Saturday in the spring. It's an all-day event, and the entire town turns out. It's like a scene from Our Town by Thornton Wilder, where the adults are sitting in the auditorium making decisions and the children are running in and out. And I remember watching the select board up on the stage presenting articles and hearing residents debate the issues and realizing that everyone had a chance to weigh in. You know, even the man on the unicycle who would ride down to the front of the auditorium with his transparencies, and he always had something he was going to oppose, and he'd give his presentation. I mean, truly everyone was involved and everybody had the opportunity to be heard. And, you know, I looked at this and I said, okay, decisions are being made by the entire community, and I want to be a part of this. I want to serve. I believe that I really believe in this odd form of government that we have in New England. I believe in citizen participation, and I love to see the community come together to solve problems and to make decisions. And not only town meeting, but I really love our entire volunteer government. So this experience I had as a youth really set the stage for everything that I've done in Wellesley for the past 18 years, from serving on the library board of trustees to town meeting to the select board, and really every volunteer effort I've been involved in here.
Great, thank you very much. And last but not least, Odessa Sanchez. Nice to see you again.
Yes, thank you, Greg. Thank you for having me again, and thank you for the Chamber for hosting this event. So for me, like Amara, it was really at an early age. I am a child of public housing. I grew up in Newton public housing. So as a child, my mother was very involved in her tenants association. She was the president of the tenants association at Hamlet Street. And I remember her hosting meetings in our living room for all the residents who wanted to get involved in interest in policy that had to do with the housing authority. And I remembered that some of their topics did not really relate to the children that lived there. So I advocated and I told my mom, can I start a youth tenants organization? And she said, well, of course you can. So she explained to me how I can start it. And I went through the proper channels in order to get the signatures. And so we had our own Youth Tenants Association, which we dealt with rules of the playground, the hours, curfews, ball playing, rules about safety, about bicycling and traffic, where we were trying to navigate fresh air and still be safe. So I was really inspired by the fact that people who are within public housing can still have a voice. And it's just interesting that I came to Wellesley 16 years ago. I started being a PTO mom. I was a PTO secretary for the Fisk Elementary School, and then I joined the middle school as being a dance chair. Then I was elected as a parent on the student council at the high school. So I really wanted to serve and be close to my children who were in all the elementary school, middle school, and high school here. So I wanted to have all of those tiers be covered. So they saw that mom was working, but mom also took time to be there and care about what happened at their school. And then more recently, in June of 2020, I was just a citizen speaking at town meeting here. And it wasn't one day, but it was 2 days. And I realized that sometimes that process of local town government is lengthy and long. It's tiring. It takes dedication to see that all those people were staying through it, no matter how many nights that it takes. And I was just a speaker. And I realized that my words were so passionate and they resounded with so many people that encouraged me to run for more challenging offices like the one that I'm running for now.
Great.
So
Thank you, Odessa, very much. All right, let's move on to some questions related to business, community, and economic development. Over the past few years, town meeting has made some really good bylaw changes that have made a big difference to help revitalize downtown, changing the intent to dine rules or eliminating the intent to dine rules, allowing small businesses to apply for liquor licenses and other things. What's the next thing you'd like to see the town do to improve the business climate? And Marjorie, I'm going to start with you on this one.
It's nice to see new small businesses and restaurants come into town, and the synergy between restaurants and small business and community members can only make the community stronger. I'd like to see foot traffic increase again coming back from the pandemic, which encourages businesses to stay open a little bit later and after restaurant hours so that people can come and do a little shopping before or after dinner. I'd also like to see some mixed use development in some commercial areas with adaptive reuse of buildings that have already been developed, which can be a win-win for a building owner in leasing part of it and having part of it be housing. You don't disturb any of the existing open space, but you build a little bit of density, which will drive more business and help the local economy as well.
Great, thank you very much. Let's go to Anmara. Same question. What's the one thing or what's a thing you would like to see the town do next to help the business climate?
Thank you. I really think that we need to focus a bit more on who we are as a community. During the pandemic, I did research going to other communities, and I was really struck by the fact that, for example, Concord is a really vibrant downtown, and it has this identity because of the Revolutionary War and its history. And to sit back and think, what does Wellesley have? You know, we have something as well. We have these colleges. We haven't really done a lot to serve our college students. And I feel like that would be a great conversation for us to have with our businesses, to think about how we can, are there certain types of businesses? Are there certain ways that we can bring these students into our downtown and use them as another source of creating that vibrancy that we're all looking for? So I think that would be something. I mean, I think obviously, you know, I think Marjorie's right on track that we need to think about the housing as well. But for me, I'm really thinking about our businesses and the workforce housing. I know this is a huge concern among our businesses in terms of employees, where they're going to live. I would like that to be another partnership that we engage in with our businesses, how to address that
Great.
need.
Thank you. Odessa, something you would like to see the town work on to improve the business climate?
Yes. So as always, I usually have the lens of the marginalized community and also the community of people that are supporting the working class, that are supporting those businesses. And I think it's really exciting that the governor has opened up free community college to people that are age 25 and older. I think that it'd be very interesting to supply more support for workplace training and just for developing all of our supportive staff so they have a chance of advancement. Any level of entry level business support could someday become the manager, and then someday get information about a small business loan and then become business owners themselves. I think it's very important not only to provide housing, but to provide economical stability and a future for some of the people that come here and live here, who are supporting our Wellesley businesses and making them some of the most, friendly and lucrative businesses that are in our Metro West. I do think that we have to start caring about the workers and how they not only go home at night, but how are they pursuing a dream to be able to become business owners themselves one day.
Great, thank you. Colette, your turn.
Thanks, Greg. So when I'm thinking about this, I'm really thinking about what I've learned at Metro Area Planning Council. What are the three things we really need for a vibrant downtown? We need people to come and shop there. We need people to live close by. We need an attractor, so something that's a really interesting shop, a really interesting location, something for people to come and see. And then we need hours of operation. So what are we doing? What can we do to help that? Well, we've certainly been working on housing. We're making our compliance with the MBTA communities really focused around our commercial districts. We have certainly worked hard with our changes to the bylaws, as you've mentioned, to make intent to dine and outdoor seating and all the things that we worked on during the pandemic to make it easier for restaurants to have a vibrant and successful business here. They're attractors. The other attractors I think we could use are a shared space. I'm really committed to having a shared community space when we revitalize our downtown. One of the things the select board has to do in the next year or so is to really finish that downtown amenities plan and think about how we can share the space down there between traffic and the parking and a parklet space for people to come and gather and be downtown. I also think it's helpful to have better transportation. I've been working really hard on transportation. We have hourly trains now, so if you have workers coming in from further away, they can get in and out much more conveniently. And we are making other connections. We now have a bus coming down through town from Framingham. We have more funding at the MWRTA to expand to hour and weekend service, which we need, to evening and weekend service, which we need for vibrancy of our downtowns. Those are things that I'd like to continue to focus on.
Great, thank you. I want to actually go to talk a little bit about the parklets further. And 2 years ago, there was a very popular downtown parklet just outside of what used to be the Gap. It seemed to be really a great place for people to connect and meet together. The board decided not to bring it back. I'll start with you, Anne-Marie. Do you think that was the right decision, and why do you think it is, or would you like to see that brought back?
Yeah, it's really tough the way our roads are laid out in Wellesley. We had a lot of discussion on the board about how could we do something like Moody Street? That's so amazing in the warm weather. And how can we set up an outdoor area for our residents to walk, for our restaurants to have outdoor dining? And the square isn't really laid out in the best way. So that was a great opportunity to try something. We really had people on both sides in terms, even our merchants were undecided on whether or not that was the right initiative. So I do think trying it was a good idea. I think pausing it probably made sense to rethink it and to say, is there something better we can do? I really think we need to find an outdoor space. I personally would love to try to work with the NRC on the space in front of the post office, because it's a lovely park. And I'm wondering, there must be a way that we can use that to bring our two sections of downtown together. Right now, they're kind of separated by that park. And if you look at Needham, they did a great job during COVID using their central park to open that up to residents. And we've got this little park. What can we do there? So I think it's something we have to keep working on and trying to figure out, how do we bring that feel to our downtown?
Thank you. Odessa, what are your thoughts about the downtown parklet?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that downtown parklet, Greg. I'm glad you brought it up. I actually visited it on multiple occasions, and I wrote a letter in support of keeping it. I remember that one of my points was the feeling that there's those that are challenged with mobility, who live in that area, but maybe perhaps don't drive, who are older citizens of our town, and they really appreciated the breather, a resting spot, somewhere to go where it's very communicable, and like it's a no pressure conversation starter. You could be alone and still brush by, and somebody will pass by, and you can chop up a easy conversation. You could be waiting for somebody instead of being idle. You could have something. You can feel like you're doing something and you're keeping yourself busy while you're waiting for somebody, getting services done nearby. I just thought that it encouraged people kind of engaging, and I think that area needed some engagement, because it's kind of like a mixed area where there's a lot of fine luxury shops, but then there's it's really close in proximity to housing. It's close to apartments, mixed income students. So you're getting a lot of different economical background of people. And so the parklet was an equalizer. Anyone can enjoy that, and you could afford it because it was free. And you didn't need to have a SUV or a nice car to drive to it. You just use your Keds and your Nikes. So I just think that it was a great brand on Wellesley, and I was really pushing for it, and I hope that it comes back. I'm not going to give up.
Thank you. Colette, since you already brought up the park, I want to just expand on the question a little bit. You mentioned that there is an intention to raise some money to do a study to think about what downtown is, but in the interim, that kind of park does provide interaction now, and anything that we do long-term may figure into that or not. Do you think it was a mistake to take it away? Would you like to see it brought back?
I would like to see it brought back. I think the feedback we got was two main sides. People loved it. It was a gathering space, multi-generational. You could meet people there. It's an attractor. There's a lot of great restaurants in Wellesley. A lot of them are really expensive. So that's a place you can get some takeout pizza, takeout salad, buy a can of soda and sit down and have a gathering without it being a really expensive evening. There's also people who live in Wellesley all summer and can't really leave and don't want to leave, want to be here. That was a space where they felt that they could really gather with their friends. There was space to sit, there was some shade, it was very welcoming. We got a lot of messages from those residents that really missed it. I think that our next step, and one of the things I did, Greg, is we heard from some merchants that were really concerned with the flow of traffic, loss of parking spaces. I mean, I think what I did is I sat down and had a conversation with those merchants and said, like, share with me what your thoughts are, and let's hash out some ideas. And the idea of splitting Cross Street into, there's basically 4 lanes there. Keep 2 lanes for traffic so you can have two-way traffic. It's just 1 lane in each direction, and take 2 lanes to be a parklet. That's a compromise. That's the art of compromise that you have through conversations. And I think that's a good step going forward. I also met with another resident in town who does this kind of work for a living. And, you know, his feedback was, you definitely need these gathering spaces. I understand Anmara's idea about having the space near the post office, but it's down low. It's a little bit, you know, in between space. It's not in the middle of a vibrant area. That cross street area is perfect for it, but you don't need the whole space. So compromise, make some concessions. No parking spaces are being lost. Traffic flow can still happen. And when we do relook at that entire section of downtown, we can relook at that from a traffic flow perspective. There's definitely some kinks that need to be worked out, but that can only be done through, you know, the next detailed work that we're doing. We had a concept, I would say, study. We had a pilot. We took it away, which I would have preferred it to stay there, but by taking it away, we got a lot of really strong feedback saying, I like that. I want that to come back. And that was an important data point too. So I would like to see it come back.
Thank you. Marjorie, your thoughts about whether, if you were elected to return to the board, would you favor bringing the parklet back next summer, this spring?
I would like to see a gathering space come back in Wellesley Square. Now that we have, as everyone has said, we've had so much feedback, and we can work with the merchants and with the traffic study committee and look at what perhaps might be a better location for a slight diversion of traffic. I understand the concern going around Cross Street and behind the shops on Central and parking. I do believe we have sufficient parking as it is, and maybe removal of one of the lanes on Cross Street is the answer. Maybe it's towards the other end of Central Street. I'm not sure, but people really like the gathering space. And it's important to have an opportunity, especially as Amara said, for the students to have a place to gather in downtown that doesn't require a large expenditure of money. So I think with all the feedback we've gained, it's time to revisit it. It was a pilot. It had some disadvantages and some advantages, but we know more now, and it's time to look at it again.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to have one more question about the small business support, and then we'll move on to some other topics. And I just ask everybody to keep their answers a little shorter so we can get everything in. And I'll start with Odessa on this one. For many years, the select board had a person designated as a liaison to the business community. The board decided about a year or 2 ago to end that practice, even though groups like the Wellesley Merchant Association asked to keep that position there. Odessa, do you think that was a good idea or bad idea? Would you want to bring that back if you were on the board? You're on mute, Odessa.
Okay. Yes, I think I look at it from when I first learned about the roles of the select board and the fact that they had liaisons. And I believe that a liaison to a different group or an organization always helps, because I think that there's not enough information or awareness about what roles that the select board can do with our community. I remember when the decision was made, and I was very, very upset, just because I was hurt for the business community. But I believe what I've learned is that if there was more awareness and knowledge about how business can advocate for themselves or to get information that they need, I think the need for a liaison would be less, but I still feel that that relationship should be still there. But I do encourage, now that they've taken it away, that businesses do take advantage of utilizing the tools that they have to communicate with the DPW and engineering and design board and our executive directors, just to make sure that they have a spot and a place to go. And it's just all about awareness, because I remember me not knowing things was really what was a
Great, thank
barrier.
you. I'm going to stop you there. Colette, you're part of the board that decided to do this. We have liaisons in lots of other areas here. Why not this one?
So we have liaisons to school committee, to municipal light plant, to planning board, to advisory. We have liaisons intergovernment. We don't typically tend to have liaisons to the community. What I think I would say, we had a liaison to the Wellesley Merchants Association, but not to the entire business community. What I think is helpful is when merchants have a question, or any business person has a question, that they have a point person on the staff who knows, who's a municipal professional, who can get an answer, who can work. We have a very decentralized form of government. So but you know, not our business owners might not necessarily understand our form of government, but they want an answer. And I think the best place to get an answer is going to a staff person who has relationships with the other staff people. You know, if it's at DPW, engineering, they don't report to the select board, but we have staff that will work, you know, across departments to get answers. Our current assistant executive director was a former chief of staff for Representative Peisch, and certainly can be responsive to the business community's needs. And also, I think it's important for anyone in the business community to know that they can approach anyone on the board at any time with any question that they have. We are all available to everyone all the time.
Marjorie, when you were on the board for many years, when this position existed and it's not there anymore, how do you feel about it now?
Well, historically, economic development was located within the planning department. And when we undertook to develop the unified plan in 2008, the select board and planning, among all the other boards, had conversations about the best way to pursue future economic development. And it was decided at that time that it should move from under planning into the select board. And the select board hired a new assistant executive director whose portfolio specifically included economic development. It's very hard. People, you know, it's people are resistant to change, and having a point person on the board and then having a point person on the staff is a big change. But it can also be much more streamlined, because our assistant executive director has constant contact to all the other arms of government, and as well as the boards, and can help move things more quickly together than one member of a board that has to act by majority.
So Marjorie, just to be clear, that you don't think the position should be brought back, is that correct?
I think it's properly located where it is now,
Okay.
under the assistant.
And Mara, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. So I think I'm on record as being strongly opposed to getting rid of the business liaison. I feel like the liaison relationship is really different than a staff relationship. And, you know, we all have different liaison roles. I'm liaison to the Housing Authority Board, to the CPC, and to the library. And my relationship is very different. Doesn't mean that each of those groups can't go directly to the staff, and they do. So Megan, our executive director, works directly with the library director. And what I bring is just a different level of communication. And I feel like our business liaison showed the community how much we value our businesses. And, you know, just an example of what I feel like we've lost is this amenities plan that we started working on a couple of years ago. It feels like we've sort of lost it. I haven't heard about it in months and months. And it's at the priority. Having a business liaison kept the priority focused on where it needed to be. And I think that we would have moved that along. So I definitely believe that it's important to reconsider that and try to bring that back. And hearing from all of our merchants and our businesses that they wanted this role, and ignoring them, I think shows that we weren't really listening as a board. And I think we need to do a better job of listening in the future.
Thank you. Let's move on. I want to talk about housing, and specific, I want to talk about the MBTA communities law. And all the 170 so communities in Massachusetts have to follow this. In Wellesley's case, the town needs to allow for the creation of 1,392 units of multifamily housing, allow for the availability to build those, not the same as building those, but to open up zoning to create that. The goal is for each community to help contribute towards our housing shortage crisis together. But in Wellesley's case, the program that's now going to go before town meeting, scheduled to go before town meeting this spring, it includes 850 units at the Nines on William Street, which is a project that's already approved. It's already half built. It's 90% occupied in that half built part. So more than half of the units at the Nines are being counted here as part of that. Do you think that that's the right way to approach it? Should the Nines be included in the towards the MBTA communities thing, even if the law allows it to? Does that make sense, Marjorie?
Thanks, Greg. It does make sense, but it's important to recognize that that's only one phase of Wellesley's housing initiative. We started with the Wellesley, the housing production plan, which helped us reach our 10% affordable housing. And the housing task force has just released an RFP for a consultant to do a townwide strategic housing plan to look at sustainability and mobility and housing and land preservation and all of those major issues together, to look at the entire town, decide, we know what kind of mismatch of housing we have for workforce and downsizing and 80 to 140% of AMI. We know what we need, but we also need to look at the entire town in the context of everything and decide where the best place is to put it. So MBTA is just a start.
I'm going to go counterclockwise. Colette, is it appropriate to count the Nines towards the more than half of the goal of this, considering the Nines is already half built and well occupied?
So, I mean, maybe I'll take just a step back, Greg. I mean, so I'm part of the Metro Area Planning Council, and we have a collaborative of 15 or so communities that meets monthly. Every community is in a very different place with compliance with the MBTA communities law. We are one of the very, very, very few communities whose zoning was already largely in place. And so our process is very different from a lot of other communities, and that might be what's making this one seem a little bit different. But I'd like to take a step back to where, you know, we have had a plan that we've been working on for quite some time now. And one of the very early phases of that plan was to change the development agreement at the Nines. And so the original development agreement had a hotel there. And we changed that in recent town meeting to be for housing. That was part of our MBTA compliance plan. So the housing there, 350 units are built out of 850. So we're not, you know, we're about a third built, and we've really increased the capacity there for housing. So I do believe that's important to have as part of the MBTA's compliance plan.
And I'm sorry, but to be fair, the hotel's not there because the market wasn't there for a hotel.
It still took action by the board to take that to town meeting to change that and make that part of our MBTA compliance plan. That was part of our plan, Greg. So, you know, we've changed that to make it for more housing. And the more housing that's there, the more density that's there, the more it makes it sort of economically feasible to have more supplies and services there. There's going to be more transportation. There'll be more people living there for a grocery store. There'll be more people there for other amenities. So, you know, all in all, I think that was a very good thing for the town, for that community that lives there, and it was part of our plan. So yes, I think that's appropriate.
Great. And Mara, same question for you.
I didn't know what counterclockwise meant. I thought Odessa was next.
Sorry, my
Okay.
counterclockwise as I see it. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, I guess I'm going to be honest here. So you guys know that I've been working on housing for a while and trying to figure out where we could build housing. And it's really, really challenging in a suburban community like Wellesley, where 90% of our land is zoned for single family. So it's really hard to figure out how to do this in a way that fits with our community and with our needs. You know, I was disappointed when we did the original planning for the Nines, because we were saying our unified plan says we want housing in downtown, and we built it on the outskirts, which is what everybody was doing, right? Everybody's saying we want it in the middle, we want the outskirts. But we did it, and the people who live there are becoming part of our community. So now the MBTA community is trying to get us to focus downtown, which is important. But I do agree with Colette. I think that having the MBTA communities law, when they didn't need the hotel anymore and they wanted housing, town meeting supported that additional housing because it helped us meet this requirement. And it has been, state requirements have really helped us in Wellesley in meeting our affordable housing goals. So I think that it's what I've learned is that you build the housing wherever you can, wherever it works. And every bit of housing we build is helpful to our community and it's helpful to the state. So I'm glad that we had the state support in adding that extra housing to the office park. And I'm going to be even more thrilled when at annual town meeting, we comply with the MBTA Communities Act and we can start looking at our central areas and encouraging property owners to figure out a way to convert some of those properties into housing. I think it's all good and it's all helpful.
Odessa, same question for you. Does it make sense to count something that's already half built and occupied towards the MBTA community's requirements?
Yeah, I'm gonna say a simple no. It does not make sense. As I live in my space here in public housing, I know for a fact that production is it matters and building up matters, and we have to have feasible projects that are looking towards housing development. And I understand that the MBTA law is trying to expand the housing inventory, but I don't think that the planners who made that up envisioned that a town was going to use a site that was already built up to meet the mark. I think that it's misleading, and I think that other benchmark towns are meeting the requirement and then some. And I feel like Wellesley could do the same. Even when I talk about the nines, I'm disappointed in how it's not really user-friendly as far as transportation or walking or just engaging within the rest of our community. I don't feel that the MBTA law was meant for sites that are going to have trouble getting rapid transportation to them. We don't have a very viable, moving, quick, rapid bus line and train situation here. It's very difficult to get to the commuter rail without a car. It's very hard to rely on ride shares and Ubers and Lyfts. And standing out waiting for a bus, there's not enough comfortable hubs or benches and things that like you would see in other towns like Waltham, Watertown, Belmont. So I think that if you're going to bring people to a community based on the MBTA law, don't mislead them into thinking they're going to have a very useful T system that's going to get them in and out of their town, because they're going to still face difficulties, and I understand that we're working on them, but I wouldn't count that as meeting the mark by using a building that's already there. I think that of course we need to build more. We have to become more creative about where we're going to build it, but we do need to build more, not just count a building that's already there.
I want to open it up to here. Anyone want to respond to what Odessa said about that location and that building and the needs of people?
Yeah.
Mara, you go.
Okay. Now I was going to say, Odessa is not wrong at all. It is an isolated community, which was why I was disappointed when it was first introduced. We need to do more for that community. There was supposed to be a bus. There isn't a bus. They have all sorts of excuses for not having the bus. We hope that when the rest are built, there's enough density to have commercial, but I thought commercial was supposed to be part of this. So, I mean, I mean it that I think every housing unit we build is important and helpful. We could do a lot better with the nines in connecting that to our community.
Colette?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to touch on transportation a little bit. The nines is a mile from Elliott. It's not really very far from Woburn either. So if you have a car, you can get to.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you, but it's not walkable to either one of those.
Can I finish, Greg? Because there are some things I'm working on to make it better. So, you know, the sidewalks between the Nines and Elliott are owned by Mass DOT. I've had ongoing conversations with them about putting money into clearing those sidewalks, not just in the winter, but in the fall, because if they're not cleared in the fall, you can't clear them in the winter. It breaks the machinery. That's a challenging conversation because Mass DOT does not have the funding to pay for maintenance, but I have been banging that drum over and over and over again, and had that conversation most recently with Monica Tibbetts-Nuts at a venue I was at the MBTA. The Catch Connect services the Nines. What is excellent about the Catch Connect is it's a data collector, and when you've got the data, you can justify extra fixed route service, which we have done in Wellesley. So when people use transportation, we can build on it. The MWRTA has more funding now for evening and weekend service, and I've asked them to consider having a family fare. So if you're a family living at the Nines and you're getting a ride for 4 people, it's a much more efficient ride for the MWRTA Catch than having 1 or 2 people. So I'm asking them to give a fare break, and they're working on that. We do have some strong ridership at the Nines. People are taking public transportation into town and into other connections. Part of what I think is the benefit of changing the hotel to houses is, I mean, I take issue with it being an excuse there's not a bus there. You need the right number of people to be riding public transportation to make it efficient. There's only so much transportation dollars to go around, but we have an excellent administrator at the MWRTA whose background is in shuttle services, and he will build the rides if there's demand there, and we are building demand for that. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yes, Marjorie, please.
I think the chicken and the egg argument about services and housing is a little bit of a red herring. In order to build services, you have to have a pro forma that works. In order to have a pro forma that works, you have to have demand. And it's very difficult to say to businesses, we think there's going to be a market there for you to build a grocery or a pharmacy when there aren't people living there. So I don't think it's out of order to build the housing. And we're going to be looking at that whole corridor, Route 9 Cedar Street, for redevelopment, because that's the perfect place, both for Barton Road residents and for the Nines. And there's more housing going in on the south side of Route 9. So things take time, and it is disappointing that it's not a full service community yet, but that doesn't mean it won't be.
I just need to say, though, that particular location is never going to be walkable. I mean, the law requires that these MBTA zones be a half mile from a commuter rail station, subway station, or ferry. It's not near any of those. And Woburn is a swim across the river and then a walk up a very steep hill. It is not walkable. It is not close. It's 1.5 miles away. So I'm still not sure how that is part of the zone. But
It's not. I mean, it's but compliance technically with the MBTA communities law, it clips it. I mean, I hear what you're saying about it being not easy, but there are things that we're working on to make it better. And I certainly grew up in an environment where you took public transportation, and not everyone can walk a mile, but a lot of people can walk a mile. And so I think making the sidewalks cleaner and clearer and accessible 12 months a year is important. There's also a trails connection that we're working really hard on, but those things take time, and so.
So Colette, I hear you on that, but then why include it as the part of the MBTA solution? Why not include it? Why not include things that can be done and built today in the spirit of that law and what that's meant to be?
And so I think that what we're doing, Greg, is we have to comply with the law. That's our first step, is compliance with the law. And this is part of an overall plan we have. It's not the only item of it, but it's part of a plan. What's happening next is the work that I think that you're interested in. The next step we have is a strategic housing plan to say, where else does it make sense to build housing in Wellesley? Where else does it make sense to rejuvenate our maybe underutilized areas? And we've already highlighted a few parts of town. So the lower part of Walnut Street is underdeveloped, underutilized. It could be redeveloped. And again, in my mind, that is walking distance to public transportation. We need much better sidewalks and connections there. I've been working with my partners in Newton to do that. As you know, at the bottom of Walnut Street, that's Newton. But I have been working closely with the transportation planner that just left and a transportation planner before that, and Mass DOT and all our agencies to try and make those connections. It takes a long time. It's a multi-agency piece of work.
And I apologize, I'm going to interrupt just to move on to one more housing zoning question. During the whole discussion about the project for Route 9 at Cliff Road, there were comments to the effect that multifamily housing didn't belong in single-family zoned areas. Marjorie, do you agree with that? If it's a single-family zoned area, we should not be talking about multifamily zoning there?
What I
ask
think,
everyone to keep their answers short so we can.
sure.
Yep.
I think that was a good idea for a project. It was in the wrong place. The developer was also asking for a 40R development, and that what in my mind was not a significant enough project to qualify for a 40R. There can be small, low density multifamily housing like townhouses or 2 floors or something like that. I disagree that it shouldn't be in a residential neighborhood. It's residents, but I didn't agree with that project.
Okay. Colette, your thoughts on that?
I think I have pretty similar feelings to Marjorie. I didn't support the 40R for that project. I didn't think the project in itself was the right size for that area, but I think it could have gone through some more iterations at the planning board and conversations with the community. I think if you'll remember, Greg, I had, what I thought that project had. It was close to proximity to transportation. It was close proximity to our downtown, but it just needed to be, there needed to be more conversations. That needed to go through a few more iterations.
So, but
We
you don't.
do- We
I'm
do
sorry, you
have
don't
multifamily
subscribe-
housing.
You don't subscribe to the idea that multifamily housing does not belong in a single-family zoned neighborhood.
I never said that, and I don't subscribe to that. We do have multifamily housing sprinkled across town, and in our most recent housing charrette, we focused on that. And we discussed that we have some of these developments sprinkled across town. They just need to fit in,
Yes, I apologize. I'm going to move to Odessa now. Thank you.
in terms of
Just
size.
in the interest of time.
Yes, so I definitely believe that the multifamily housing, it needs to be built, and I believe in it merging in and complementing the residential area in a way that it's still the same neighborhood. There is no immediate or obvious boundary or line. It's important for families to feel like their neighbors have synergy as far as where they're living. And what I'm against is multifamily I don't like a program that says it's going to be for multifamily and usage, but it's really going to only have a small amount of units that would actually be able to be affordable. So I want it to be built, but I'm going to watch very carefully for developers who bring it in and they claim that it's for multifamily usage, but it actually isn't. And so when I looked at the Cliff Road, I love the way, the aesthetics of it, but I was secretly wondering if it wasn't just kind of like the Trojan horse and it really wasn't going to really bring in a large.
Thank you,
Yeah.
So our zoning was put in place over 100 years ago, and our needs have changed. I mean, Route 9 used to be a cow path. So to say that we will never look, or that it's inappropriate or the zoning we have today is frozen in time, doesn't make any sense. I do think that we need to think about what project fits in the right place. The way we do things in Wellesley is our way we work things is with our zoning is everyone has the opportunity to say, this is what I'm allowed to do, but if I want to do something different, you can ask permission. That's what a special permit is for. That's what a variance is for. And in terms of building multifamily housing, to ask if I can do this in this location is a completely reasonable question, and we have a process to handle it. And in that particular situation, it didn't work out. But if you look at that, it's on Route 9, it was walk to the train. To me, it was a good question to ask and to see if there was something that would fit there. I'm sorry the process went the way it did, but there were a lot of mistakes along the way. And maybe some other project would make better sense. Right now, there's a project by the walk in Cedar Street, and that one also is going to require a little bit of rezoning. And right now, it seems like people think that that's a better project. So
Okay,
I think you have to always ask.
Great, thank you. This one I think can be a very quick answer, a question for everyone. Wellesley has a single tax rate, which means that residents and businesses pay the same rate as same rate of property taxes. Some communities charge businesses a higher rate. Do any of you think that Wellesley should change that practice and charge businesses a higher rate?
No,
That's all
it's
yes?
crazy, Greg. There's no mathematics in the world that makes that make sense. It really is. If you maximize the burden on businesses, it makes almost no impact to residents. So under no circumstances do I think anyone would ever come to that conclusion.
Right.
Anybody
We
else
work
say-
on it every year, and every year, same thing. The math just doesn't work out.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to try to answer these next two questions quickly, all right? So first one is, tell me about a business that you go to outside of Wellesley that you wish would move to town. And I'll let anybody go first who wants to.
Oh, I
Simple.
know. So in Concord, there's a chocolate and nut shop that I would love to have in Wellesley.
Okay,
It's wonderful.
Marjorie? Or
I know this is going to sound pre-COVID, but I can't buy a pair of pantyhose in Wellesley. You can't buy sundries like you used to in Filene's basement. I'd love to have a small department store.
great, Odessa? You're on mute, Odessa.
Yes, there is a hair supply store in Waltham that I go to, and being an African American woman, I have to go outside of Wellesley a lot to get hair products, and a lot of my other neighbors that are African American or have hair textures that are ethnic. So I would love to see some more diversity in businesses as far as beauty and hair is concerned.
Great, and now Colette.
The Natick Outdoor Store.
I'm saying that again, please.
The Natick Outdoor Store. You can get worms for fishing. You can get work pants. You can get shoes. You can get swimsuit. You can get tennis rackets. You can get everything there.
Very good. Okay. Next question. Actually, I think we're out of time, so we're going to go to our closing statements. And someone just remind me, I think we started with Colette, so why don't we start with Odessa with 90 seconds to tell us why we should elect you. You're on.
Thank you. So I've proven myself over the last 3 years being a very in tune, dedicated leader and a change maker. Through my campaigning, I found that some of my interests and platforms are now becoming tangible things that our government is working on for as far as transportation, as far as diversifying some of our spaces, having the Barton Road community being a early voting site. So I just think it's great for housing. It's great for the public that is diverse. And I just will represent everyone. I will be a cool-headed person who can collaborate different departments the way I've been doing on the Historical Commission. I work for the Mass Commission on the Status of Women. So I'm really trying to empower women in business. I'm doing the International Women's Day again, and I'll be using women business owners and women artists. So I just think that a vote for me is a vote for Wellesley, and I'm trying to make sure that Wellesley is a better place for everyone who's here.
Very good. Thank you. Ann Mara, you're next.
Okay, so I believe that it's essential that we have a strong partnership between the town and our business community. Our retail districts are what make Wellesley special. Our businesses also provide services and jobs for our residents. We need our entire business community to thrive if we want Wellesley to thrive. That is why I pledged to reinforce the town's commitment to our business community during my second term. To accomplish this, I have 5 key priorities. The first, begin work on an economic development plan, which will create a roadmap for ensuring that Wellesley is a vibrant community. 2, fight to reinstate the Select Board business liaison so that our businesses know that they are valued and that they get the support that they need. 3, ensure that we comply with the MBTA Communities Act and then encourage developers to create the type of housing that works for our community, specifically addressing the needs of our town's workforce. 4, improve town communications so that we better understand and respond to the needs of our businesses and our residents. And 5, kick off the process for creating an art center as a service to our community and as a driver for economic growth. I bring people together to get results, and I believe that the best solutions come from groups made up of people with different perspectives. I listen to all, and I'm not afraid to use my voice to make a difference. I'm working for our future. I'm passionate about serving this community, and I ask for your vote on March 5th.
Thank you very much. Marjorie, you're up. You're on mute, though.
Didn't do that on purpose. Economic development that maximizes community strengths is what Wellesley has been trying to do. And the assistant executive director portfolio directed at economic development in part is helping move us forward. The strategic housing plan will incorporate the town's approach and make recommendations with broader economic development strategies in mind. We're hearing a lot about incivility in public discourse. It's productive, unproductive, and disruptive, and damaging in a town where everybody needs to work together to move the town forward. As Governor Patrick used to say, we don't need to agree on everything in order to be able to work on anything. I have experience in large collaborative projects and bringing people together, incorporating differing viewpoints, and weighing and balancing the needs of the town at the center. I look forward to returning to the select board and picking up on the work that I've done in the past 2 terms to move the town forward at this inflection point. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Colette, you are up.
Sure. So the board has very broad responsibilities. We have to balance transport, housing, economic, and climate initiatives. They all work hand in hand, and one cannot be advanced without advancing the others. We have an equity audit to execute, a strategic housing plan to develop. We must comply with the MBTA Communities Act and work to implement our other strategic plans. The Unified Plan, Climate Action Plan, the Sustainable Mobility Plan, and the Hazard Mitigation Plan, just to name a few. Of particular interest to people watching today, we have to complete our work on the downtown amenities plan, like we talked about, and be really forward thinking about how our downtown will look, feel, and operate to welcome residents, businesses, and consumers. And I'm particularly interested in ensuring some sort of welcoming community gathering space is included in our plans. We're in the process of hiring a new CFO, and following that, we will look to the process of hiring a new fire chief and a new police chief. We have a lot of work to do in human resources with a compensation and classification study to ensure we can hire and retain the best workforce to deliver services to our residents and our businesses. We need board members who are willing to work on all matters that the board has to address, who are well qualified and who can build consensus and are willing to compromise, who treat each other professionally and with respect, no matter the policy disagreements. And I've shown that I have the capacity to take on the work that needs to be done in a professional and courteous manner. I particularly want to keep advancing work on transportation, finance, and policy development. And I'm asking for people's vote on March 5th. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your time today, for your willingness to run. And I will say, I do this in 4 different communities. You're the only ones who ever get your closing statements in the right 90-second period. I didn't have to cut a single one of you off, so well done. A reminder to everybody who's watching that election day is March 5th. There's early voting and other opportunities, but you certainly want to vote by March 5th. You'll be choosing 2 of the 4 candidates here for 2 of the seats on the board. But don't forget to vote. And thank you all very much for watching. We will share this video and hope everyone else shares the video with it. I had about 20 or 30 more questions that we didn't get to, but here we are. So thank you very much and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you
so much,
Thank
Greg.
you so much.
Thank you to the chamber.